Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're unpacking a really fascinating data set today that evaluates an environmental education program. But we're not just looking at standard test scores or basic memorization here. Instead, we're zeroing in on the ultimate goal of any real education: actual, measurable behavioral change. We're going to look at a comparative evaluation of pre-test and post-test student surveys. It tracks exactly how a group of kids shifted from simply being aware of environmental issues to actually changing how they live their daily lives. We often assume environmental education is just about teaching kids to love nature, right? We kind of think, hey, if we can just get them to appreciate the trees and the animals, our job is done. But we're exploring a mystery educators face literally every single day. If survey data tells us that 95% of kids already love nature, why isn't that love always reflected in their daily actions? Why do they still litter or, leave the water running? So here's our roadmap for the student's psychological journey today. We'll hit the knowing-doing gap, see how high attitudes remain stable, look at knowledge sustained and refined, check out the behavioral breakthrough, and finish up with a model for action. All right, Section 1, the knowing-doing gap, the baseline reality of environmental education. This is absolutely a universal human problem. Think about it. Just like adults who totally know they should eat a healthy plate of vegetables but consistently go for the burger and fries anyway, these students faced a massive gap between holding environmental awareness and taking real daily actions. The source data shows us pretty clearly that just having the right information in your head doesn't automatically program your hands to do the right thing. Moving to Section 2, high attitudes remain stable. Emotional connection was already strong. 96.7%. Before this educational project even got off the ground, a staggering 96.7% of the surveyed students already knew the importance of trees. They walked into that classroom possessing a massive affective baseline. They absolutely weren't blank slates needing to be convinced that nature was a good thing. What's super fascinating here is that the attitude numbers are basically flatlines, but flatlines at an incredibly high level. The desire to play in nature, the importance of trees, the desire to protect nature, and curiosity about nature, they all just hovered right around the mid-90s, both before and after the program. This proves the kids already had a powerful, rock-solid bond with the environment. The education program didn't actually need to make them care, because they already cared deeply. And honestly, this is a real game changer of an insight for anyone designing these programs. You don't need to spend precious time and resources trying to convert students who are already enthusiastic converts. Okay, Section 3, knowledge sustained and refined. Foundational understanding was solid. So if their attitudes were already up there, what about their foundational facts? Well, the data shows us that basic knowledge levels were maintained and in some specific areas, slightly refined. For instance, awareness of paper recycling started at 89.4% and stayed exactly at 89.4%. Their baseline facts were already locked in. Then, looking at waste reuse, or upcycling, that started at 80.5% and saw just a slight bump to 82.9%. Again, we're looking at high baseline numbers with only marginal changes. The root problem clearly wasn't a lack of information. You can't just throw more facts at kids and expect their physical habits to change. Overcoming that knowing-doing gap requires an entirely different kind of bridge. Which brings us to Section 4, the behavioral breakthrough, the transition from knowing to doing. Now, this right here is the true plot twist of the entire dataset. Just look at these sharp upward trajectories compared to those flat lines we saw a minute ago. The pretest baseline for actual daily behaviors was hovering around the middle tier, the mid-60s. But after the project, they leaped right up into the high tier. This is where the magic happens. This is where abstract concepts finally manifest as concrete, real-world routines. Let's break down those deltas one by one. First off, we saw a solid 11.3-point jump in students actively choosing not to throw garbage on the ground. That means moving from a passive, internal understanding of, yeah, littering is bad, to the active physical choice of actually holding onto a piece of trash until they find a garbage can. Even more impressive, the data reveals a 14.7-point surge in conscious, daily water-saving habits. This translates to real-world actions. It's the difference between knowing about droughts and actively remembering to turn off the tap while brushing their teeth. It really shows a significant shift in daily mindfulness.
But get this, the highest growth area in the entire evaluation was this massive 21.2-point jump in actively respecting and not harming living creatures. This is absolutely crucial because it's where the gap between knowing and doing was bridged the most effectively. It shows a profound behavioral awakening in how these kids actually interacted with the natural world, right in their own backyards.
Let's wrap it up with Section 5, a model for action, synthesizing the final results.
When we look at this general comparison analysis, our overall synthesis perfectly solves that mystery we introduced at the very beginning. The project didn't just impart abstract facts, and it definitely didn't try to force an emotional connection that was already there. Instead, it took those stable, high-level attitudes and those solid knowledge bases and successfully converted them into a massive surge in active behavioral growth. It provided the missing link.
The source data ultimately concludes that this framework represents an effective, practical, and behavior-focused environmental education model. It serves as a really powerful blueprint for educators everywhere. It proves that true education isn't just about what you know in your head or even what you feel in your heart. At the end of the day, it's fundamentally about what you actually do with your hands. We've seen the data, folks. We know the transition from awareness to action is entirely possible. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on regarding your own habits. Are you just aware of the world around you, or are you actually taking action? Thanks for discovering these insights with me today, and I highly encourage you to carry this mindset right into your own daily routines.